Shalom, everyone. In this video, we're going to have a very advanced disquisition on a very great mystery. And I want to begin by stating that some prerequisites that I feel would be of great aid in understanding much of the advanced knowledge and wisdom that's going to be presented in this video would be my series on Adam Kadmon and my video entitled Advanced Qabbalah, the Arcane Construct of Mashiach / Lucifer. Now, I wouldn't necessarily state that these videos are strict prerequisites for this video, but if you watch these videos, you'll have a much better comprehension and understanding what's going to be presented in this video. Okay, so the topic at hand is Edom, and Edom is the Hebrew word used for the provenance of the descendants of Esau. Now, as I'm always stating in all of my videos, there are at the very least 7 aspects or levels to every aspect of the Hebrew language. Right, this goes back to the ancient oracle in Sefer Tehillim that states that Adonai refines his word 7 times. Now, the Hebrew word that's used there for refining, is the Hebrew word zaruf, which may also signify permutation. And essentially, we may think of the 7 levels of every Hebrew letter, word, and verse as a permutation, a possible permutation, a divine permutation of the letter, word, or verse, right? And we have to understand that these 7 levels, these 7 possible divine permutations or interpretations of the text were all preordained by Ha Elohim from the foundations of the universe. This is very critical to understand and know. Okay, so speaking on the 7 levels then of Edom, and I just want to list a few here. We need to understand that level 1, which is always the literal or the Peshat level, is basically the sons of Esau, meaning that the literal interpretation or meaning of the word Edom is that it refers to the provenance of the sons of Esau. Okay, level 2 would be red, because the Hebrew word Edom may also signify red. And then if we go all the way up to level 6, then we would say in level 6, Edom signifies Adam. And, when we're at level 6, we have to understand that we're already at one of the lowest and most mystical and esoteric interpretations or meanings of this word, okay? And so this is why, if you have seen my videos on Adam Kadmon and my video on the arcane construct of Mashiach / Lucifer, you will understand very well how Edom ties into Adam very well. Okay, but again, this is very esoteric. This is very mystical. Okay, level 7, the Hebrew word Edom is a reference to the Klipoth, or the satanic domain. And if you are very well versed in our principal Kabbalistic treatises, you should know this very well, because in Qabbalah, it is very well known that Edom is a mystical, esoteric reference to the Klipoth. All right, we find these references en passant in our Kabbalistic treatises, as an example in Sefer HaZohar. Okay, which of course would then mean that Esau, again, is equated mystically, esoterically with Lucifer or Samael. Okay? So now let us begin to talk about another mystical level, another very esoteric and mystical level of Edom. Now, in Judaism, in Orthodox Judaism, Edom has been a esoteric and mystical reference to Christianity for over 1,500 years. And this is just a plain fact. okay? And this has caused a lot of confusion amongst lay Jews and many Goyim and Christians, especially when they find this out for the first time, right? If you are a Christian and you are just finding out that, you know, we Orthodox Jews equate Christianity with Edom, this is probably going to go over your head, and this is probably going to spark a lot of confusion on your part, okay? There was even debates among certain rabbinical scholars over time, you know, as to why this is and as to whether this is a valid equation, okay? So what we need to understand first, before we get really deep into this matter, is that essentially there is a binary aspect to Christianity, okay? Meaning that there is a literal aspect to Christianity and there is a mystical aspect to Christianity, okay? On the literal level, we may equate Christianity with Rome, okay? And so we understand that, you know, for over 2,000 years, Rome has been the capital of Christianity, not Jerusalem, okay? And, you know, and then we need to understand, well, how is Rome referred to in the ancient Hebrew scriptures? Because it absolutely is referred to many times in the Holy Scriptures, okay? Now, according to the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are our most ancient sources, Rome is equated with the Hebrew word Kittim, okay? Meaning that every place in the Hebrew Masorah where the word Kittim appears, the Septuagint translates it as Kittim. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, all references to Rome in Hebrew are Kittim, okay? So this tells us, as a matter of fact, okay, that Rome is Kittim, and therefore we may equate Rome, since we can equate Kittim with Rome, we may also literally equate Rome with Christianity, okay? And this was not lost on the most initiated Rabbanim and Kabbalists of the past 2,000 years. As an example, I cite here Rambam's or Nachmanides commentary to the Torah on Sefer Bereshit in chapter 10, verse 4. He states, "Now it is well known in the sayings of the ancient Rabbanan that the fourth beast which Daniel saw represents Rome, who exiled us. Now do not be astonished at this, that Kittim signifies Rome, and do not refute it, because the third kingdom was Greece, as stated explicitly in Sefer Daniel, and the Kittim are the seed of Yawan, who is the ancestor of Greece, as it is said, and the sons of Yawan, Greece, were Kittim." Now, the reason he has to state this in his commentary to the Torah, the reason why he's stating do not refute this, that Kittim is equal to Rome, is because he understands that in Orthodox Judaism, Christianity is represented by Edom and not properly Kittim, okay? Now, he being a very highly initiated Kabbalist understands that both equations are valid here, okay? He doesn't want to deal with the mystical aspect of Christianity. He wants to deal with the literal aspect. He understands that on the literal level, Christianity is equated with Rome, which is equated with Kittim, and he's telling you in this very advanced commentary to the Torah that, hey, don't forget, you know, our ancient sages, the ancient Rabbanan, always equated Kittim with Rome. Okay? So we need to understand this. We need to comprehend that Kittim in ancient Hebrew was Rome, or the Roman Empire. Okay? Now we may proceed to discuss the mystical aspect of Christianity. Okay? Now, in beginning this very advanced mystical or telistic disquisition on the mystical dimension of Christianity, I thought it would be really fitting to introduce the advanced explanation of this matter given by a very, very perspicacious, very, very intelligent Rab who lived in the 1800s. He was an Italian Rab whose name is Shamuel David Busato. His acronym, as it is known in Orthodox Judaism, is Shadal. And in his commentary to Sefer Bereshit, chapter 27, verse 40, speaking on this matter, he states, "However, after the destruction of the Second Temple, the Jews began to call the kingdom of Rome by the name Edom. And this was because, in general, the Edomites tormented Israel, and therefore the name Edom was hated and detested by us. And specifically after King Herod reigned, who was an Edomite, who was very bad to Israel. And when the temple was destroyed at the hands of the Romans, the hatred of the Jews passed from Edom to Rome. Therefore, and also because of fear, they nicknamed Rome with the name Edom. So in this passage, this, very astute Rab is telling us, explaining to us the significance of the matter, right? He's stating that as we, highly, learned Rabbanim understand, we're smart enough to understand and know that Edom is not strictly equated with Christianity. That is to say that, the progenitors, the genealogical progenitors of the Christians is not Esau. That is to say, we understand that all Christians do not genealogically descend from Esau. No, that's not what we're saying. It's just a nickname. Edom is just a nickname, a substitute that we have given for Christianity. And he gives the reason behind it. Now, it's no coincidence that for 1,500 years, all of Judaism has equated or nicknamed Christianity Edom. This was all done through divine providence. And I can only hope that you have eyes to see and ears to hear to understand this, and to be able to see this spiritually, that this nickname, this substitute, was preordained by Ha-Elohim. It's not a coincidence. It was done for good reason. It was preordained by Ha-Elohim way before it even happened. Okay? So with that said, we may now understand and state that level 5 of Edom is Christianity. And it's a very, very, very esoteric and mystical equation that has been preordained by Adonai. You have to understand that we're dealing with a very divine supernal matter here. We're dealing with very holy, chosen people who are the Jews. We are the chosen ones. We are the sons of Elohim. So these are very supernal matters that we're dealing with here. And if all of the Jews, all of the chosen Jews are going to equate Edom with Christianity, there are some very powerful, mystical, divine reasons behind it, as we're going to get into here very shortly. So now we're going to begin with the esoteric Kabbalistic proofs of this very mystical, recondite level. Okay, so we begin with the parable of Yaakov deceiving his father Yitzchak. Okay, in this parable, we understand that Yaakov represents Mashiach, and the garments of Esau represent the klipoth, and Yitzchak represents Judaism. And the fact that Yitzchak is blind, that represents the spiritual blindness of Judaism, of the Jews. So what we have here is we have blind Yitzchak represents the spiritually blind Jews who don't recognize Yaakov, who's the Mashiach. All they feel, all they see is the exterior, the external aspect of Mashiach, which are the klipoth. And those who are advanced, those highly initiated Jews, before the veil is removed from their eyes, then that's when they begin to understand, it is the hands of Esau that I feel, but it is the voice of Yaakov. And this verse represents the beginning of the veil being removed from the Jew. When he can begin to recognize that Yeshua, while externally may appear satanic, internally he is divine. Okay, and this goes back, this ties in with the parable of Joseph in Egypt. Joseph represents Mashiach, and he is surrounded by Egypt, which represents the Klipoth. And he's not recognized by Yehuda and his brethren, which signifies the Jews who do not recognize Yosef or Mashiach. So all of these religious matters were already known before they happened. They were already encoded in the holy oracles. And this is why the ancient sages, they asked this very profound question in the ancient Midrashim. They ask, why were the Israelites exiled into Egypt? And the answer is because they attempted to kill their brother Yosef, and their brother Yosef was exiled into Egypt. Measure for measure, it was done back to them, because they did not repent for their sin of attempting to kill and reject their brother Yosef. Measure for measure, it was done. And so they were in bondage in Egypt for over 200 years. Likewise, many of the ancient sages have asked, why was the Second Temple destroyed, and why have we been exiled into the Roman Empire? Now, unfortunately, many of these Orthodox Jewish Rabbanan just don't really have the correct answer. They don't really know the answer. It's gone over their head. The reason, very simply, is because they rejected and killed Mashiach ben Yosef, who was Yeshua ben Yosef. Measure for measure. They killed and rejected him to the Romans. Measure for measure, they were exiled and have been subjugated under the Roman Empire. Why? Because they did not repent for this sin, just as they did not repent for the sin of killing and rejecting Yosef in Egypt. It's just part of the revolution of the aeons and history cycling through and repeating itself. Going back to that very wise saying, those who do not learn their history are doomed to repeat it. Well, here we have a classic example of the Israelites not learning their history, not well enough at least, and thus were doomed to repeat it, and indeed repeated it. Now let us go a little bit more Kabbalistic into the proofs here, and go into the esoteric method of Notarikon, which has to do with acrostics, right? So we read in Sefer Bereshith, I believe it is chapter 25, verse 26, I believe. Let's see here. Yes, so apologies for not displaying the citation here, but actually it is there. Okay, so here we begin. I wanted to begin with the name of Yeshua as it is known amongst the Orthodox Jews. So amongst the Orthodox Jews, rather than calling Yeshua HaMashiach Yeshua, they instead call him Yeshu, okay? Which is an acronym in Hebrew, which signifies may his name and memory be wiped out. So here you can see the three-word expression, which in Hebrew signifies may his name and memory be wiped out. And if you take the first letters of that expression, it spells Yeshu, which is what they call him, okay? And interestingly enough, in Islam, they call Yeshua Isa or Isa. So in Islam, you know, Yeshua is equated with Asa. This is very, very interesting. Now, as a side note, which is unrelated here, in Hebrew, the way that you spell Islam, when you permute the letters, it actually spells Samael, which is Lucifer, which tells you everything you need to know about that religion, Islam. Meaning that Islam is a satanic religion that is run by Ha-Satan. It's no coincidence that when you permute the letters of Samael, they become Islam in Hebrew, okay? It's not a coincidence. It's a divine message from our Heavenly Father warning us and telling us the true nature of that demonic religion, Islam. So we read in Sefer Bereshit in chapter 25, verse 26, it states, he grasped the heel of Esau and called his name Yaakov. Now this is very interesting because if you take this phrase in the Hebrew in that verse, the first letter of each of those words in that verse actually spells Yeshua comes. So you have this divine oracle encoded in the Hebrew within the verse. It's very fascinating, very, very interesting. Okay, so while the Orthodox Jews state that Yeshu signifies may his name and memory be wiped out, according to HaTorah, Yeshu actually signifies, and he called his name Yaakov. Because in the verse, if you begin at the left, you have the word Yaakov, then the Hebrew word Shmo, and then the Hebrew word Vayikra. And Vayikra Shmo Yaakov is Hebrew for, and he called his name Yaakov. And if you go from left to right, taking the first letter of each of those words, they spell Yeshu. So the Orthodox Jews have lied. Yeshu does not stand for may his name and memory be wiped out, but actually stands for and he called his name Yaakov. Okay, now when we parse and take apart the Hebrew name Yaakov in the original Hebrew, if you were fluent in Hebrew and could see it, you would know and understand that Yaakov is a compound word. Yaakov may be split into two words. The first word would be a letter, which is the letter Yod, and then the second part would be a kab, which is the Hebrew word for heel. So really, the Hebrew name Yaakov is the letter Yod plus the heel. Now, if we take the Hebrew name Yaakov and we subtract the Hebrew word heel, and then we add the Hebrew name Esau, we get Yeshua. Now, this goes back to that very primordial divine prophecy in the beginning of the Torah, where it's prophesied that the serpent, that is Esau, would bruise the heel of Mashiach, who is Yaakov. And so that's why we subtract the heel from the Hebrew name Yaakov. And that's why we add Esau, because Esau comes in, he bruises the heel to the name Yaakov, and when you do the Kabbalistic mathematics behind that, you get the name for Mashiach, which is Yeshua. And so we need to understand is that there's this very, very mystical, esoteric equation between the Hebrew name Esau and the Hebrew name Yeshua. The Hebrew name Esau is just one letter removed from Yeshua. Moreover, the Yishmaelim, our distant cousins, refer to Yeshua as Esau. It's almost as if they know the secret, or they're hinting at this very esoteric, mystical secret that Yaakov, or Mashiach, is equated with Esau in the sense that he is surrounded by the Klipoth. So now this leads us to, I wanted to me making a few very grand mystical points in Qabbalah. Which is that when you have become fully initiated or highly initiated into the holy mysteries, what you will begin to understand and realize is that Mashiach and his bride Chawa border the Klipoth, or the satanic domain. It's as if to say that the holy domain is but a handbreadth away from the satanic domain. Okay? And essentially, Mashiach and his bride are enveloped by the Klipoth. And the Klipoth essentially are to act as barriers and as guards to the holy domain. Okay? And we Kabbalists use the parable of the nut to, explain this or picture this. Okay? And so we also need to understand that Mashiach, or Adam, is the son of Zadik, or Yesod, which is Elohim, which represents the archetypal divine phallus. And so knowing this, we need to then understand that there are two aspects to Zadik, vis-a-vis the circumcised phallus and the foreskin. And we need to understand that the Klipoth are rooted in the divine foreskin, which are represented by the garments of Esau. So pictorially here, what we have is, the way we can think of it, pictorially, is that Yaakov and Esau represents the image of the archetypal divine phallus combined, where Yaakov represents the phallus and Esau represents the foreskin, because the Klipoth are rooted in the foreskin, or the Klipoth of Yesod, while Yaakov, or Mashiach, is rooted in the actual phallus or the holiness of Yesod. Now, what I'm explaining here is very, very, very advanced Qabbalah. Cannot emphasize this enough. In fact, if you've seen some of my other videos where I cite from Abraham Abulafia and Rab Dawid Moshe and other highly initiated Kabbalists, they know these great secrets and they write about them in their books. But again, this is very, very, very advanced Qabbalah. I don't want to get very deep and into the matter here in this video, but I did want to slightly introduce these very advanced Kabbalistic concepts and knowledge in this video, because it is definitely related to this topic at hand and what we're talking about here. So you can go and study this out more for yourself after this video, because there are many holy mysteries that branch out from this holy mystery alone. It's tied to many other very advanced, highly esoteric holy mysteries. I just simply wanted to introduce it here in this video, briefly introduce it. That's it. Now, I want to go back and I want to speak on the essence of what I have just revealed, this very advanced Kabbalistic concept that deals with the proximity between Mashiach and the Klipoth. Okay, because this is very, very important to understand in understanding what's what's really going on here, what really has been going on for the past 2,000 years. What we need to understand is that there's this binary aspect to Mashiach ben Yosef, okay, vis-a-vis his internal holiness, but what is perceived as his external evil, so to speak. Okay, so again, there's this very crucial binary aspect to Mashiach ben Yosef, which I like to call the externality versus the internality. Okay, so if we look at Mashiach ben Yosef and Christianity, okay, as a construct, right, we are then going to analyze the externality of this construct. Okay, externally, right, we have this understanding that or we have the facts that Mashiach is a Gentile. So in discussing the externality of this construct of Mashiach ben Yosef and Christianity, we need to look at it from the eyes of the holy Jews, the holy Orthodox Jews for the past 2,000 years. How do the holy Orthodox Jews for the past 2,000 years, how have they viewed Mashiach ben Yosef, who is Yeshua ben Yosef, and Christianity? How do they see it? Because if you can understand how Christianity and Yeshua ben Yosef are seen from the eyes of holy Jews for the past 2,000 years, you will understand the externality of Mashiach ben Yosef and Christianity, okay? Which is that Mashiach is a Gentile, okay? He has a Gentile pagan name vis-a-vis Jesus, which sounds very similar to Zeus. He's anti-Torah. He's anti-Jewish vis-a-vis that the Jews are rejected as sons of Elohim and are replaced, going back to replacement theology. Or when we talk about all of the significant historical episodes where Christians have killed many holy Jews in the pogroms and in the Holocaust, etc. Okay, this is the external aspect. Going back to the external aspect of Yaakov, who is surrounded by the garments of Esau, which are the klipot, which goes back to the external aspect of Yosef in Egypt. He is surrounded by the klipot, okay? They gave him an Egyptian name. He shaved his beard, looking like a goy, looking like a pagan. They totally paganized Yosef in Egypt. He looked like an Egyptian. He talked like an Egyptian, right? It's all part of the externality of the klipot, okay? But now let's discuss the internality of this construct, okay? Which is the true facts, which are that Mashiach is indeed a Jew. That he has, his real name is Hebrew, which is Yeshua, right? Going back to Yosef, his real name in Hebrew was Yosef. But everyone knew him by his Egyptian name. Okay, he's pro-Torah. Yeshua was pro-Torah. He kept the Torah. He fulfilled it, and nowhere in his speech did he ever say he came to abolish or crucify the Torah. God forbid. Okay, it's eternal. He said it's eternal, and it is still binding and will be binding forever. Okay, he was pro-Jewish. Okay, go read Shaul's writings, who was one of his chief disciples, who says the Jew is superior. Okay. The gospel to the Jew is first, the gospel of Mashiach is first given to the Jew. It's first to come to the Jew. Okay? The Jews are first in everything. Okay? Including claiming and bathing in his blood. And this is proven in the New Testament, where we read in Sefer Matityahu in chapter 27, verse 25. What do the Jews say? They say, all of the Jews answered, and said, his blood be on us and our children. So right before the Jews are getting ready to kill Mashiach, getting ready to hand him over to the Romans to be killed, right before this moment, they all claim his blood upon themselves and upon their children forever. You don't think Mashiach knew what was going to happen? You don't think Elohim knew what was going to happen? This was all prophesied from the foundations of the universe. Now, do you think Elohim is an evil father that wants to kill and punish his children in horrible, evil, torturous ways? No. This is the irony. This is the divine irony in the entire situation. right? The Jews hand over Mashiach ben Yosef to the Romans to kill him, okay, so that they're not responsible for killing him. They let the Romans do their dirty work, okay? So you can't really say that the Jews directly killed him. They had him killed indirectly. That goes back to the craftiness, okay, of the Jews. And then, unbeknownst to them, they claim his blood upon themselves and all of their children forever, not knowing that this was actually something good. And this is why the Jews are saved. As long as the Jews keep the Torah, they are saved. They don't need to believe in Yeshua HaMashiach. All they need to do is keep the Torah, keep the Mosaic covenant, the Abrahamic and Mosaic covenant, and they'll be saved. Whether they believe in Yeshua or not, it doesn't matter, because they've already claimed this blood. Our ancestors have already claimed this blood over us, so we're already saved. All we have to do is make sure is that we keep the Torah, and we're good to go. Okay. So it is only the true Christians, the real true Christian initiates and adepts, that can be called the internal Christians, that have relation and are deeply rooted and sourced in the true Mashiach. But the external Christians, which for many generations has included the vast majority of Christians, are not deeply rooted and sourced in the true Mashiach, which is Yaakov, but are rooted and sourced in the Klipoth. And woe unto them, woe unto you, if you are in the Klipoth, if you are an external Christian. If you think Mashiach is a Gentile, you go by his Gentile and pagan name, if you think he's anti-Torah, if you're anti-Semitic or Jewish, you know, if this all rings a bell to you, if you're more aligned with these precepts, then you're rooted and sourced in the Klipoth. And woe unto you if that's the case. Now, this is important to understand, very important to understand, because unfortunately most Christians don't know this. Okay? They don't understand this very great mystery that I'm revealing here. Okay? Now, very interestingly, we have standard prayers. We Jews have standard prayers for all of the holy days. And we have books for each of these holy days and the prayers, right? We have what's called the Machzor for Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, which is a book that includes all of the prayers for Yom Kippur and Yom Teruah, okay? And there's this very, very ancient prayer. I mean, this prayer is you know, probably like 2,000, 3,000 years old. It's very, very ancient prayer, which is found in our Machzor of Yom Kippur. And this is what the prayer states. I'm going to read it to you here. It states, "Our righteous Mashiach is departed from us. Horror has seized us. He has borne the yoke of our iniquities and our transgressions, and is wounded because of our transgressions. Raise him from Seir to assemble us a second time on Mount Lebanon." Now, this is very interesting on a number of levels. First and foremost, the ancient sages, the ancient Jews, are all stating here that Mashiach has borne our iniquities and has become wounded for our iniquities. So that very famous oracle in Sefer Yeshayahu in chapter 53, they're explicitly telling you in this very ancient prayer that has been said, you know, for over 2,000, if not 3,000 years, in every generation, every year, really, that verse is a messianic verse that is speaking about Mashiach. So when any Orthodox Jew, any modern Orthodox Jew comes and says or tries to teach otherwise, they are demonstrating their stupidity and their ignorance. They are putting their immense ignorance and stupidity or foolishness, whatever it may be, on full display for everyone to see. And there are many proofs from our ancient Midrashim, from the Talmudim, from our Kabbalistic treatises, and even prayers like this, that Yeshayahu chapter 53 is a messianic verse. This is a sealed matter. You're either blind, stupid, ignorant, or foolish if you do not know this or do not agree with this. And that's a fact. Okay? The second very momentous point is that in this prayer, what are the Jews saying? They're saying, raise him from Seir. So what are they saying? They're saying, hey, you, Mashiach. Right? The prayer is speaking to Mashiach. They're saying, Mashiach, come out of Seir. What is Seir? Seir is a reference to the provenance of Esau or Edom. So the prayer the Jews are really saying here is that we know where Mashiach is. He's in Edom. We already know who Edom is. Who is Edom? I've already told you. If you're an Orthodox Jew, any Orthodox Jew knows what Edom signifies and represents: Christianity. What they're saying here is that Mashiach is over there with the Christians. He's been with the Christians, right? We've been saying this prayer, every year, generation after generation, for the past 2,000 years. Okay, since the destruction of the Second Temple period, we Jews have seen that Mashiach is with the Christians, and when we're saying this prayer is, come out of the Christians, come back to us. You belong to us Jews. That's why it's saying, raise him from Seir. Raise him from Christianity. Come back to your people, the Jews. So this is another proof text showing us that this is a very ancient mystical, this is a very ancient mystical equation between Christianity and Seir or Edom. As I've said before, this equation has existed, since the foundations of the universe. And so with that said, now for the huge warning here, because I've already alluded to this very great warning here. I have said that there is a binary aspect to Christianity. Okay? There is the true Christianity, which is represented by only a very, very small remnant. Okay? It is only a very, very small remnant of Christianity that it can be said is true Christianity and is truly rooted and sourced in Yaakov or Mashiach. And the rest of it is pseudo or evil and is rooted and sourced in the Qlipoth. Okay? We need to understand why this is. This again ties to the other mystical level of Edom, which is the equation with Lucifer. Because the entity that really runs Christianity is not really Mashiach but Lucifer. It's Lucifer's domain. Christianity, to a very large extent, to a very, very large degree, maybe over 90% of Christianity, is governed and ruled by Lucifer. Okay? And this is very easy to see. Elohim, Mashiach, is pro-Torah. We understand that the Torah is binding and that it is eternal for every Israelite. Okay? And any stranger that wants to be grafted in and become an Israelite. But the moment you say that the Torah was crucified by Yeshua and done away with, you enter the domain of Lucifer, who is anti-Torah. That's why he's called the lawless one. In Hebrew, the lawless one would be the one who is without Torah, who is anti-Torah. He is the antithesis to the Torah, where we state, do not kill, do not commit adultery, etc. He states, kill, commit adultery. Do the inverse of the entire Torah. Whatever the Torah says to do, you do the opposite, or go against it, or don't do it. This is Lucifer's domain. And his capital primarily is in Rome, where the Pope and the hierarchy of the Vatican are all ruled and governed by Lucifer. They are agents of Lucifer. And so is the rest of Christianity, whether it's Protestantism, I don't care what it is. Any Christian that is not deeply rooted and sourced in the Hebrew Judaic foundations of Christianity and of Mashiach and of the Torah is in the domain of the Qlipoth and Lucifer. And this is why this is the other mystical level that ties in with Lucifer, meaning that yes, on one level, Edom represents Christianity, but we must not forget that Edom also represents Lucifer, or the Qlipoth. And so they're tied in. There is this mystical grafting between Christianity and Lucifer. Lucifer has grafted himself into Christianity to a very large extent. And that is why Edom mystically simultaneously represents not just the Qlipoth and Lucifer, but Christianity. Because Lucifer has a very powerful stronghold on Christianity, which is why only a very, very, very few remnant within Christianity can be truly called Israelites and true Christians. Okay? This is extraordinarily and extremely momentous to understand. This knowledge is of the highest order and of the most critical relevance to comprehend and ascertain. Okay? And so with that said, I want to read to you a very, very ancient oracle that ties in to everything that I have said here. It is found in Sefer Yeshayahu in chapter 63, verse 1. It states, "Who is that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah?" Or Basra. It's really Bozrah. But the point is that this is a messianic verse, right? The verse then goes on to describe Mashiach. It goes on to describe this very powerful divine figure who is coming out of Edom. Now, if we understand that Edom represents Christianity, then the verse Kabbalistically, the verse makes perfect sense. Mashiach ben Yosef is in Christianity. That's where he is known. That's where he resides, principally. Okay? And so now it's saying, who is this mighty divine figure that is coming out of Christianity? Well, it's Yeshua, HaMashiach. And again, this is another proof from the Holy Scriptures that ties in and equates Mashiach or Christianity with Edom. Because here we see that Mashiach, he's coming out of Edom, which is Christianity. Okay, and this oracle is describing the shock of the latter Jews when they discover that Yeshua HaMashiach, who has been in Christianity or Edom, is actually the true Mashiach. Okay, that's really what this messianic verse is really saying at its essence. Okay, again, if we read many of the oracles dealing with Mashiach, they always describe him through the color red, right? If we read the oracle in Bereshith in chapter 49, when Yaakov is giving the blessing to Yehuda, Mashiach there is described, as being, drowned in the juice of grapes, right? It states that he has like dyed red garments that have been, he's been treaded in the vat, and so he's associated with grapes and blood and red. Okay, here we have another verse that I just cited here, where again he's described through the color red. He's dyed in garments, red garments, right? Red. Edom means red, right? So we have this valance, red, that is always put upon Mashiach, right? Again, Yaakov has the garments of Esau, which are obviously going to be red garments. Okay, so you had this association of the color red with Mashiach in many messianic oracles in the scriptures, which is another proof equating Mashiach with Edom, because Edom also means the color red. Okay, now on another very Kabbalistic level, I would also like to illuminate that there are only two men in the entire Tanakh that are described as red. Okay? Now, we read in Sefer Bereshith in chapter 25, verse 25, speaking on Esau, it states, "And the first came out ruddy." The Hebrew word there is admoni, which is the adjective used to describe Esau. And that Hebrew word means ruddy. And that Hebrew word, that adjective, is only used twice in the entire Tanakh. It's used here in the first reference that I gave you towards Esau, And it's also used in Shamuel Aleph chapter 1 and verse 12, where it states, now he was ruddy and beautiful, in regards to King David. Now, if you've seen my videos on Adam Kadmon, and then Lucifer and Mashiach, etc., if you've seen all my videos, okay, and you fully understood what was presented in them, then you understand that there's this very, very profound mystical equation between Mashiach and Lucifer, right? The gematria of Mashiach is equal to the gematria of Nachash, which is serpent. Yaakov, who is Mashiach, is covered in the garments of Lucifer, or Esau. Esau is Edom, which means red, meaning that we have this equation between the color red and Lucifer. But why do many messianic oracles describe Mashiach with, through the color red, which is Edom? Here, Esau is explicitly described as ruddy or red, but so is King David. Again, this goes back to a very, very deep and profound core mystical equation between Lucifer and Mashiach. There is this very profound, deep, esoteric equation here. What does it mean? Well, it's way too telistic and way too mystical for me to fully explicate it, here or in some of my other videos. But the point is that you can see, you should be able to see this very near proximity between Mashiach and Lucifer. Or at least understand, at the very least, that there is some very profound telistic equation between Mashiach and Lucifer, because King David represents Mashiach. And both Lucifer and Mashiach look the same here. According to these verses, it's going to be very hard to distinguish between Mashiach and Lucifer. If you've ever seen Lucifer, he looks like one of the most beautiful, most brightest angels of light you will ever see. But if you've ever seen Yeshua HaMashiach, he looks almost the same way. How could you tell the difference if they appear to you when they both are very powerful, glorious, beautiful angels of light? Especially when we have so many mystical equations between them in the verses. Yaakov is covered in the garments of Lucifer, or Esau, or the Klipoth. And so many can't even tell the difference. The Jews look upon Yeshua ben Yosef, or Mashiach ben Yosef, and they confuse him with Lucifer, not understanding that he's actually Mashiach. We also have the verse in Shir HaShirim chapter 5 verse 10 where it says, "My beloved is white and Edom," or red. Now here, we should understand as initiates and adepts that this verse is a reference to Mashiach, reinforcing this red valence. Okay? So, all in all, I can hope that if any of you listeners are Christians, that I can only hope and pray that you fully understand the implications and the ramifications of everything that has been explained and illuminated here. I would admonish you to meditate and ensure that you are not within the klipoth of Christianity. And if you are a Jew, I hope this was most enlightening, and that you can hopefully see who Mashiach ben Yosef truly is. Shalom, wa amen.